Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Lee Raney, actually who's joining us again, a partner with NPIQ. So Lee, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back, I should say.
Thanks, I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about NPIQ first and what your role is there.
All right. NPIQ is a consulting firm for nonprofits, and it is 4 of us nonprofit consultants who have banded together, bringing what we call the business mind to the nonprofit heart and bridging the gap there.
And so give us an example of some of the work that you've done with some of the nonprofits in San Mateo County or in the greater Bay Area.
In the area. Okay. And so our work tends to be consulting projects, executive coaching, and actually interim executive work. So on the consulting spectrum, it falls into really 2 areas: mission and mission-related areas, defining your mission, communicating your mission, messaging,
right.
And communicating with impact. And then on the money end, your financial health, your sustainability,
right.
your growth.
Which typically is that fundraising piece for a lot of organizations.
Exactly. As well as the operational financial piece. You know, keeping track of your money.
What I love about the structure of this nonprofit is that you've brought 4 groups together to do this consulting work, to do this work, because obviously we have different areas of expertise, and all nonprofits have different needs with regard to mission or operations or financial development or programs and services, communications. I mean, the list kind of goes on with the need. And with that complex need, you and I chatted last time about why nonprofits fail. So give us an update on, what are you seeing now? Are we getting better? What are the successes that you're seeing nonprofits either realize, or where are still those fail points?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work around nonprofit failure, and we actually have a research project in Genesis. The National Center for Charitable Statistics reports that nationwide 4.2% nonprofits fail every year. And then in a recessionary time, not surprisingly, that increases. And it disproportionately affects small nonprofits. Right? So we're working to look specifically at the state of California and then locally. So we think we have funding for a local project, which is exciting.
And anecdotally, would you say that in the small range, and what would you consider the small range? Under $500,000, under $1 million annual revenue?
I would actually say definitely under $500,000, but more in the $100,000 a year. So really kind of start up small, haven't been able to get
the groundswell support.
Exactly.
So if you were to give advice, free advice to our viewers, is it because they haven't identified that mission and articulated it, or is it that they haven't looked at opportunities for collaboration with maybe perhaps a similar or a partner nonprofit? Is there one thing that you might point to what happens most in this failure rate for nonprofits of that size?
I think you actually hit it on the head. It is opportunities for collaboration. What I see a lot is nonprofits starting up, and there are a lot of pro bono attorneys out there who will file all the paperwork for you, but they've done that without a feasibility study of, they see a need, but they haven't looked at the landscape and seen what other nonprofits are out there. And can they work with an existing nonprofit? It's a lot of work. To start a nonprofit or to start any entity. So I think that's really the #1 thing.
And the sustainability after that. So even if you had a successful year because you have a very specific cause and need, and then to sustain it 2 and 3 years. It'd be interesting to see some of your data once you're complete as to what's the time frame of that success. So is it the failure in the first 2-3 years? Is it failure in year 3 and 5? And what are things that we can garner and teach our local nonprofits about how to sustain and grow and exist?
exactly.
So we do want to talk about sustainability as well. So on the success side of nonprofits, what's that key factor that you say, this is the one that's going to make it?
And you're right. It actually is the flip side of why do nonprofits fail, why do nonprofits succeed? And it goes back to those two buckets, mission related and money related. And we're following a formula written about by Jeannie Bell in her book, Nonprofit Sustainability. And the bottom line is you've got to look at both the mission and the finances together instead of looking at your programs and their impact and then looking at your financial health. And so she has a really nifty matrix that shows an analysis of your programs and their impact and their profitability. And not surprisingly, you want to really focus on that quadrant where it's high impact and high profitability. And profitability is kind of a dirty word in nonprofits, but it doesn't mean that you don't make money.
And for some nonprofits, it could be the philanthropy. So you have somebody that's willing to be a large stakeholder or a large funder for your organization, and they're going to want this high impact on that program side, and it's not simply to keep on the program side all this money going after that and not seeing some of the results financially.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you talk about mission and we talk about philanthropy or investment into that nonprofit, we've certainly turned into a metrics and data based philanthropy or funding group. So we really want all of this evidence-based fundraising, this evidence-based giving and philanthropy. That changes a mission in a lot of respect. It's not just delivering a service. Now you really have to measure its impact and what it's doing. That in and of itself is a large job for nonprofits to do when basically all they really know is how to deliver that service, not necessarily measure the impact and communicate all of that.
Yes. And that's actually one of the things that we help nonprofits do is my point of view is that you can measure anything. I get a lot of pushback from most nonprofits, but we've been able to do that. For example, in a school-based therapy program where they're like, well, the kids feel better. That's our impact.
Sure.
Like, well, what if you ask the teenager, young person, before your session how they feel on some scale that is accepted in the therapy world, and then how they feel afterwards, and track that. Would that be hard to do? No, we could do that. And so they're now doing that. And it's not something that when you're in the business of delivering that program that you think that you can measure those kinds of things. I want to switch the conversation from sort of the logistical and the delivering of program to now the sustainability within your board of directors and your governing and policy body. What are some of the success points that you've seen that are essential for nonprofits in their policy bodies? And I think this is huge for board of directors because typically board of directors know that they have a fundraising responsibility and a fiduciary responsibility. And I would add a third responsibility, which is to help the nonprofit measure and communicate impact. So the story that I just told you, the board of directors, if they had the expertise on board or the mindset to think about impact and evaluation, could have helped that nonprofit. So I think it's a key aspect.
And we only have about 30 seconds left. So resources and tools that you can quickly give a tip for nonprofits to look at.
Absolutely. Well, we have a number of conversations around sustainability scheduled. The next one is in September, end of September.
Okay, and so we'll put that list on the program list.
Great. And so you can check our website for the resources like the book I mentioned on nonprofit sustainability and some of the worksheets. And then the upcoming conversations. The next one is sponsored by Cooley, LLP, the national, international law firm. In September.
Well, I think it's important for our nonprofits to know that these resources are out there and that we need to seek resources beyond our board of directors, beyond what we know, and get professional support, because it is out there.
Yes, absolutely.
For nonprofits to succeed. Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining us once
Thank
again.
you.
And I hope all of our nonprofits are just a little bit stronger out there today in learning what Lee has brought to us. So we'll see all of you next time on Penn Voice.